Hello again, this is Michael Palermo, and in this course on CSS3, this module is going to focus on content. So what do we mean by that? In our module overview, we're going to specifically address fonts. We're going to look at selectors. We're also going to look at form inputs. We're going to see that there's state of data that we can address in our styling, and then we'll have a summary. Now with regard to fonts, you'll know that if there was a "we must have this font on the page," in many cases we had to use images. This is no longer the case. With CSS3, we can now use the @font-face syntax to introduce a new font into our environment. The syntax works as follows. The font-family is a friendly name that we create. So in this example, font name of your choosing. Then we also specify the source of the font. This is key because this is where the actual physical font resides. And in this example, the URL is pointing to a font.woff file that would reside in the same folder as the CSS. We also specified its format. What we could do here is put a comma instead of a semicolon, and we can have optional URLs for fallbacks. In other words, if a browser doesn't support that format, perhaps we can try another one. Examples would be SVG. So as we're looking at this, just keep in mind, this is all about just registering or adding a reference to a font, but we haven't used it yet. To use a new font, you would address the friendly name that you provided it with the @font-face syntax and just treat it like any other font. So in this example, we're using the font name of your choosing. If I wanted to, for fallback support, I can provide a comma separated list right after that font of common fonts, just in case the browser doesn't support this feature. Now, you might not be one who authors your own fonts. I certainly don't. So if you're wondering where could you get these, an example of a website that does this is fontsquirrel.com. Not only do they provide many fonts and for free, but they usually provide the syntax that you need that you could plug right into your CSS3. Another thing we can do with our text is provide a shadow for it. In this example, we want a div, any kind of text that's in there. And by the way, this would include text that would have those fonts that we just talked about. In this example, I'd want it to have a shadow that would be 2 pixels low and 2 pixels to the right. And I would want to have a blur of about 4 pixels. And the shadow would be black. Down below it, an H1 tag specifies a text shadow. The negative numbers mean go up and to the left. And then I'm providing the blur and a different color for that shadow. Let's see some of these technologies in action right now. We're in the starting solution for this module. These are the files that were available at the end of the last module, our intro. And as a scary reminder, this is how the site looks so far. The first thing we're going to tackle is the fonts. In Visual Studio, I'm going to introduce a font face so I can register or reference a font. I want you to notice that there is a fonts folder now on the solution, and it contains 2 different web fonts that I've downloaded from fontsquirrel.com. And although I was provided the syntax to make that very easy to just plug in, I'm going to do this the hard way so that I can talk about it. So font, face, and we're going to choose font family. And this is where I get to give it a name. So ARGH. The source is going to be the URL that will go up and then over into the fonts folder. And specifically, I want to get the AAARGH-web font.woff file. And I want to specify that the format is WOFF. So I've just created a font face, and now I can use it. I'll make this really simple. I'm going to go to the body tag. I'm going to specify that the font family to be used for the entire site is going to be this new font. So all I have to do is look at the name, and I could provide a backup in the event that a browser doesn't support it. And I'm done. I'm going to save that. And now let's take a look how this will appear in the browser. Here I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And we could see a slight difference. Now, whether or not it's considered an improvement at this point is yet to be seen. I don't really like the way that the header's looking. I don't mind the text in the body, so let me change the header text to something different. Something with a little bit more pow. So I'll introduce another font face. In fact, I will copy this one and just change this to DJ. I'll change this also to DJ. And then I have a title and also a subtitle that I'd like to have use this font. Font family will be DJ. And if that's not available, I'll use a script. Return to the site, refresh, and now I can start to see a little bit more character now in the header. We're getting closer. This next topic is dealing with selectors. Let's take a look at some of the new selectors that we can use. On the far left-hand side are all the navigation types of selectors. The ability to select something by merit of its type or by its position. In the middle column, we can see that we can also select things based on values. For example, if a particular attribute either begins, ends, or contains a certain value. On the right-hand column, different selectors for different purposes. Best way to see these is in action, so let's get right to the next demo. I'm taking a look here at the web page as we've left it. This specific area in the page is the unordered list of all the features we're going to be discussing in this course. And this is going to give us an opportunity to talk about those positional selectors in good detail. So I'm going to go over to Visual Studio and bring in a CSS rule here. You'll notice that I'm going to the section that has an ID of topics, and I'm saying for every list item, give me this background color. Now I'm not using any of those selectors yet, but let me go ahead and apply that. And then let's go back over into the site, and then I'll hit refresh. And you can see that all of them now have that background color. Well, that's not what I wanted. What I want to do is choose only specific ones to have that background color. So let me start off by choosing first child. Go back over to the site, and we can see the first child has been selected. Of course, last child is just as easy. I'll save that, go back over, hit refresh, and we can see the last child. So those are two very simple ones to use. Another thing that we can do, which is very powerful, is to use the nth child. Now, if I put a 1 here, I'm doing this on purpose to really make a point. And the point is, there is no zero-based array for accessing these list items. 1 refers to the first one. So this is actually the same as first child. If I go back, hit refresh, core has been selected. Now if I want fonts, which was number 3, I could put the number 3 here, save that, go back, hit refresh, and we can see the third one's been selected. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about scenarios where you might want to have every other item, odd or even? The way that can be done, you can actually say, I'd like to go to 2, but then you can specify 2 with an N. When you do that, you're saying, I don't want just the second one, but I want a repeating of every second one. So I'll save that, go back over, and then watch what happens when I refresh. See, every second one has now been selected, which is great. If I wanted to now color or provide a different kind of background to the other ones, I could do it this way. I'm going to copy this whole thing, save it here, 2n-1, and I'll change this to another one of those appropriate colors that I have, D4A8, so slightly lesser intensity. So again, you'll notice that I'm saying for every second item, and this one's saying for every second item, yet subtract 1. So in essence, it's going to start with the first one and do 3, 5, and so forth. Refresh, I can now see that took place. What if we want to do every third? Go ahead and copy that. I'm going to change this to now be a 3. 3 minus 2. I'll keep that at 1 and I'll make this 3 minus 2. And the color here is going to be EDDB. Again, just a lesser intensity. And now I have that blend of every third. So things are starting to look much better there. The size of the items is actually a little too big, so I'm going to drop in some code. There's nothing really exciting here in terms of CSS3 other than a little tip trick here. You'll notice that I have I'm still referencing the line items, so I'm going to make those smaller. And I'm also going to indicate when I hover over any of those items that I can change the background color and foreground color. No big deal. This is where the little tip and trick is. Notice that while I'm hovering over that line item, if there's a child in it, such as a paragraph tag, I now want to display that paragraph tag using the inherit keyword and provide a nice color. See, right now, each one of those particular line items has a paragraph tag in it that we haven't been able to see because elsewhere in the style sheet, those paragraph tags are set with a display of none. So now we're going to be able to see them. The items are now smaller. Now if I hover over, let's say core, we can see the background, and I don't know if you can notice this as I go down close to colors and background, but it looks like there's a message appearing right in this area. I'm going to be getting to that in another module, but the key here is that this is a way for you to have one fixed position where regardless of what you're hovering over, it's kind of like a tooltip that's static or like a little status bar. I'm going to add an absolute position to article, section, and intro. I'm going to make it so that only the intro element is going to be sitting on top with a z-index of 1. So if I save this right now, that area is here. If I try to scroll down, I can't. Clicking here doesn't do anything, but at least everything's fitting in one screen. But it looks like I've got some content clipped. I got to figure that out. Going back over here, this is another powerful thing that can be done when using selectors appropriately.